everybody. 안녕하세요. 저는 탄디입니다. My name is Thandi and welcome back to my channel. So today I am coming at you guys from our cinema at home. We have a little mini cinema. And I feel like it's a fitting location because today we're going to be reviewing the film Love and Leashes, finally. Oh my gosh, so when I filmed the trailer reaction, like I got so much engagement and I was not expecting it, and like everybody was really excited to see the film. People were fans of Sohyun and Jun from UKIS. I didn't really know much about them. Sohyun had a familiar face, but I don't really know Girls' Generation's music, but I know that is one of the biggest K-pop girl groups ever, right? So kudos to them. But I didn't grow up with K-pop culture, so I learned that in college. Like I was like, oh, EXO or whatever. But their fans were in my comments and talking about, how don't you know Sohyun? How don't you know Jun? He was the manke or something. I don't know what, I can't remember the word that they use, but it means the youngest person in his boy band group. Didn't know that either. Like for me, this film, I'm really watching it just as a Korean language student and a South African filmmaker and producer. I'm just watching it as myself. I don't have any biases going into it, you know what I mean? People in my comments are like, did you watch it? Did you watch it? Hell yeah, I watched it. I watched it a couple of times because I had to just get everything. I feel like I missed some things in the first watch, so I had to watch it again. And when I watched it the second time, I had more questions, so I watched it for a third time, and so on and so forth. So suffice to say, I enjoyed the movie. 너무 즐거웠습니다. I'll give it an 8 out of 10 because there were so many things just as a filmmaker that I really enjoyed about the film. Okay, the plot was funny, it was hilarious. I screamed, I scrummed. I did. I was like, ah! I cringed, I laughed out loud. The comedy was on point. The comedic acting was on point. And that brings me to the second thing I liked about it. So it was the plot, the first one. The second was the acting. Like Sohyun and Jun, they really did well. They impressed the fuck out of me. I enjoyed the direction and the cinematography as well. There were some like director choices that are so interesting, and I like, if I could, I would have a one-on-one with the director. Park Hyun-jun? Director Park Hyun-jun? Yes. A woman. I have questions. I have so many questions. Everything was harmonious, if I can put it that way. Everything was harmonious. Everything worked well together. It just felt good, and it felt so good as a film that I find it to be an evergreen film. So like if it ever comes on TV, you're not gonna change the channel. It's one of those films that you can watch over and over again and not really get tired of it, you know? Suffice to say, I really enjoyed it. So now with the film. All right, the first thing that I want to say is that when it comes to the actors, I really enjoyed Sohyun's emotional coolness. Like she was just even keeled. She was never hysterical. Like she just felt so calm and cool in the way that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed seeing her in a dominatrix role. She embodied that shit so well. Like, oh yes. And then with Jun, I really enjoyed his vulnerability. Like he really brought this like soft, tender-hearted kindness to the character that was endearing. It was endearing, and it makes sense when you think about one of the directions from the director that I read about. She had given him the direction to behave like a golden retriever dog, and he actually studied golden retrievers. I could tell Like, he really took that direction well. He did. I mean, the panting, the talking fast, being overly excited, tripping over his thoughts. The way he would follow Jihu with his eyes, like in the scenes, like perking up at certain sounds. He really took that direction well. And I think it worked. I would have never guessed that dog play would be so like endearing and funny. Personally, like, I have some experience with the BDSM community, not a lot, like I'm not like a practicing member, but I did attend an event once at a BDSM organization, and in order for us to attend the event, we had to go through orientation and get a membership because... Oh, come on, focus on me. No, you don't want to focus? Yeah, sorry about that. Why am I telling you this? Damn, guys, don't smoke weed. We open up in the workplace and we have Jiwoo. She is a no-nonsense, emotionally cool, hardworking lady who has a crush on Jihu, right? Jihu, he is very bubbly, personable, likable, and very popular. The girls love your boy. They know he's cute and they want a little piece of that action, you know what I'm saying? She has feelings for him, but she does not show her feelings at all, okay? Even her friend at the office was like, listen, you're not gonna get nobody if you don't cross the line. You gotta come outside of yourself, right? But then at the same time, her mom is like, no, if you have feelings for somebody, you shouldn't be the first to say it, you know? Be feminine, you know, the sort of traditional way of thinking about dating. Do I agree with the mom? No, not really. But yes, kind of. I'm in the middle because I don't believe in just shooting your shot. Like, yes, shoot your shot, but make sure you shoot your shot when the game is hot. Like, you've been playing for a minute, you're in your zone, a couple of 3 shots, 3-pointers, or whatever you call them, like, you know, the most furthest shot in basketball. Like, that's when you shoot your shot, in my personal opinion. You gotta, like, be strategic. You gotta be in the game. You don't just shoot your shot. Like, what if the net is not there? What if nobody's even watching the game? Like, you get what I'm saying? So, yeah, I'm 50-50 when it comes to that. She plays it very, very cool, which I like and which was the right thing to do. Because when somebody is as popular as Jihu was, like, you can't give him overt attention. That's not going to get his attention. He, like, the emotional coolness that Jiwoo had, like, was the thing that actually made him come up to her and greet her and like try to get her attention. Because like, why are you not giving me attention? All these other girls are giving me attention. Like, what's up? You know what I mean? So she played her cards right. So the inciting incident is the whole collar incident where Jihu receives a package at work.
나 그거 아까 전달했는데. 예? 누구한테요?
He tries to lie his way out of it, talking about like, you know, it's his poodles. He almost gets away with it. At least the cringy scene is about to end. Like, she's gonna leave it alone. When... Oh, you know, she's there, she's seen it, and she's not gonna pretend like she hasn't. Now that was refreshing. So he's like worried that obviously like she's gonna judge him and all of that stuff. Trying to remember, where are my notes? Jiwoo gets advice from her friend. She tries to tell her what's going on, but she doesn't want to reveal his secret. And, you know, like she basically says, I found out something that may be embarrassing for him and I don't know what to do because I don't want to be too nice, you know, but I don't want him to feel awkward. So the friend advises her to kind of keep it cool, keep it low, like just give him some space, you know. But poor Jihu is so sensitive. He is so sensitive. And I mean, we find out why later on, but he gets so touchy because for him, he's like, oh, she's avoiding me because she thinks I'm a pervert. She thinks that I'm like a weirdo and all these things. And he's so worried, poor guy. They have a conversation and she reassures him that I don't think you're a pervert or anything. People have their preferences and all that stuff. So he gets so excited, again in this very Labrador golden retriever way. He gets really excited and spills.
힘드시면 저라도 괜찮다면 저한테 해주셔도 괜찮아요.
뭘요?
뭐 명령이든 구하물치든 다 괜찮으니까 그냥 앞으로 저를 개라 생각하고 그냥 개처럼 대해주세요.
Oh my god, it's so cringe. I scream every time. She's like, oh, no, that's not what I meant. I don't think you're perfect, but I'm also not into that either. He's just like, damn it. Like, I could just imagine. I'd be red for days. After that exchange, they go to a work dinner and he again is like very sensitive and she's, you know, just trying to, you know, be cool. They sit at the same table. However, Jiwoo's boss is being like a fucking asshole, right? So she's cussing under her breath. Jiwoo hears her, but he thinks that she's talking about him. So, yo, she in my language we would say like cut to the parking lot and he's crying and she finds him and like, what? Why are you crying? Like, what is wrong? And you know, he tells her what he mistakenly thinks and she corrects him again like, no, I don't think you're a pervert. I wasn't talking about you. And then in his drunken state, he decides to ask her,
지우 씨 혹시 제 주인님이 돼주시면 안 될까요?
boy, what? No sense of occasion, no sense of timing. Like, just like a dog. She of course says no, but that is the first call to adventure that we get in the film. But she likes him, and I'm telling you, we do a lot for people that we like. Things that we wouldn't otherwise try, you know? So she calls him, Jiwoo calls Jiwoo into the worker lounge. She hands him a blindfold and he's like, what's going on? And she's like, okay, well, if you don't want it. And he's like, no, I didn't say that. She came out of nowhere with that. He puts on the blindfold, she sits him down and she's testing it out. She wants to see if she has the capacity to be a dom, right? And she's telling him like, sit back there, commanding him. And you know, he listens, he's like riding along with it. And she's asking him questions about where like his desire came from, like, why did you ask me to be a master?
지우 씨는 처음 보는 사람이에요.
As he's explaining, you know, he's talking a lot in that very golden retriever way. He's going way beyond like where she's even thinking. Like, she's actually with him. She's like, listen, I don't know what you want from me, but I can learn quickly. And then, you know, he perks up like, are you saying what I'm thinking you're saying? And she's like, I'm thinking about it. I haven't said yes yet, right? There's a moment actually in this scene that was really important for me to highlight because of the preconception people have about subs. So she gives him a command, right?
그럼 천천히 30까지 세고 나서 안대 벗고 사무실로 오세요.
And he's like,
아직 제 주인님 아니시잖아요.
and I absolutely love that because that showed a great sense of boundary that I think we need to pay attention to. Shortly after, they're knocking off from work and Jiwoo is waiting outside with an umbrella because it's raining and he's waiting for Jiwoo. You know, she's like, oh my god, like, you're waiting for me? He's like, yeah, I'm trying to serve you, girl. I'm trying to serve you. And that was enough. And she's like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. Let's go. Because I did tell you guys that I was going to rope some of my girlfriends into watching the film, I did reach out to my bestie and I asked her a couple of questions and I wanted her to answer so that we could have a fuller discussion. So here is what she has to say.
Hey, bestie. My first question is, who did you relate to the most in the film and why?
Hey bestie, thanks for having me on your channel. Hi guys, if you don't know me, my name is Misha. I'm Thandiwe's bestie for life down. And together this past week we actually watched this new Korean movie called Love and Leashes, and she has some questions for me so I can be in this video with you guys. Hi. So her first question was, who did I gravitate towards, or who did I relate the most to in the movie? And it would have to be Ji-woo, the woman character. And I say her because I love the way they portrayed her as being open-minded and non-judgmental, and it allowed her a space to grow and really explore her own interests in a safe way, and I was so excited about that. Another thing that really made me gravitate towards Ji-woo was how she wasn't afraid to act upon what is considered to be unladylike or something that men in Korea may not want. So being bossy, very assertive, knowing what she wants, like not taking any shit. Clearly not taking any shit in this movie, okay? So I really gravitated towards her the most, and I love the way that the directors and the writers really shown how much she grew and how she really knew more of what she wanted through their interactions with Ji-woo, I think.
Now comes the fun and games. So the beginning of this sequence is Ji-woo just learning a lot, like finding out what does BDSM mean, what male sub, male dom, female dom, what are the rules, what are the exchanges, you know. And one thing that I really liked about this sequence, if I'm being honest, is how the director integrated the filmmaking with what was being said. So like there's a scene where they're in the elevator, and in the backtrack they're talking about the safe words.
돔과 섭은 플레이 도중 긴급하거나 위험한 상황에 사용할 수 있는 안전어를 정한다. 안전어를 사용한 경우 플레이는 그 즉시 멈춰야 한다.
And that was so like cool to me, because yes, like you press the emergency button, that is the safe word. And so I just liked the way that they integrated that information. It wasn't just a lecture, you know what I mean? Let's start with the dog play. The dog play was cringy. But not all of it. Okay, let's actually deep it. Like let's break it down. So it starts off pretty chill. He gets his collar on, which is almost like a ceremony in these instances. Like, this is happening, you're giving me your submission, and I am choosing to be responsible for you for this X amount of time, right? She starts off real easy. Son, hand, right? Body, head. But the body was actually what kind of got me, because he lays his head on her lap and she just starts like to brush him gently and stuff. And for the first time, I actually understood a little bit of what the dog play does for people, because I'm not familiar with it, right? But it was tender, it was soft, it was like, oh, okay, right. You know, he's barking and everything, and that was hilarious. I still screaming. When she hands him the treat and he starts to eat out of her palm, and then like the director knew what she was doing, okay, because she slows it down even more. It's supposed to be cringy, and for a minute it was, right? But then it switched. I don't know if y'all caught it, but it switched and it became like really sensual. Trying to pay attention and like thinking about it, and I'm like, of course, because think about it. Okay, so the inside of your palm is actually very sensitive, right, for most people. So can you imagine like the lick of a tongue? Like, you know what, if you're an adult and you participated in adult activities, you know what the flick of a tongue feels like, especially in an area that's very sensitive. So I can imagine the sensational correlation that's happening, you know, like, so I was like, oh, wow, okay. But then, you know, they're interrupted by the couple, and then it just becomes totally comedic, and it throws the whole night off, which was too funny. The next day she apologizes to him because when he was playing, he got hurt with his knee, right? And that was also really important to note, because when you are doming for somebody, you are responsible for the aftercare, which you see later on in the film, by the way. But aftercare being like, once you've experienced these high sensations, you're responsible for bringing them back down, grounding them, because that's what they're entrusting to you as the submissive, right? So that's why they actually have more power than what we traditionally think. They do a makeup date, and in this scene, this is where she steps on him.
What did you say, nigga?
And you see Sohyun, she is good at her fucking job, man. When she sat back in that seat and extended her leg, like, was she a ballerina? Somebody who knows Sohyun really well, like when she did dancing training, was she a ballerina? Because her lines are so clean. Anyway, and I'm like, okay. And he's really enjoying it too, right? Stepping on somebody is something I've never actually done, never experienced it on either end. And you always wonder, like, what is the appeal? But because I watched the film a couple of times, I remember Ji-Hoo, the guy, saying, he says that it makes him feel alive. So when I rewatched it, I started to pay attention to that in the way that he portrayed his character. Like, okay, so if this is making you feel alive, like, how do you interpret that with each scene? So when he's getting stepped on, I'm like, damn, like, it made me want to step on somebody. I wanted to be in Sohyun's shoes, quite literally.
그만할까요?
Then we have the candle wax scene, which was also really hot and sensual, and you want to play with candles in the bedroom or wherever, please make sure you actually get your candles from an adult store, because the candles that you use in BDSM play are not the same candles you use at home. The play candles are softer on your skin. I've experienced the candle wax. It's really nice. It stings your skin and then it sort of disperses this heat. That was also really sensual too. The feather play was one of the scenes, and one where she was stepping on his face and stuff. And you know, I really appreciate the fact that it was a male sub. I say this because submission is expected of women. Like, you expect a woman to be submissive, so you don't really pay attention to the nuances and the subtleties of the experience that's actually happening. And so when you see it with a man, you're like, oh, okay, he's enjoying himself. They both are, in their own different ways. At the end of one of the scenes, I think it was the whipping one, I was like, how are they not having sex? Like, how does this end here? I feel like when you get that heightened, that stimulated, like, you'd be like going in for a kiss, you know, a grab or something. Like how did they, that's my question. How did they not jump each other's bones, like, after 2.5 months? That's what I want to know. Okay, so then the story starts to take a turn when Ji-Woo is starting to develop feelings for Ji-Hoo. And I mean, I think the feelings thing is very mutual. But she decides that she's going to tell him how she feels. They go on a date, a funny date, mind you. And she tells him, like, oh, can we please, like, date for real? Like, I don't want to be just DS partners. Like, I actually want to date you. And to our surprise, he says no. He says no. And, you know, it just makes everything kind of fall apart, right? But my boy was triggered. He was so triggered. And this is what happens when you guys don't have conversations about the real shit. You know, like, yes, they were exploring and discovering the BDSM stuff and the sensory stuff, but at some point, You know, you want to understand the story. Where did you pick this up? What happened? How did you feel? Because this is where we get to see a bit of Jiho's story and what his vulnerability really is. So with him, he was traumatized by his ex-girlfriend who judged him when he came out. And it really left him scarred because for him, this was just a really instinctual desire that he had. He meant no malice with it. Like, it's just, this makes me feel alive. This makes me feel good. And what's crazy is how they say when they would be together, they would have aspects of DS behavior, but they just didn't categorize it as such, right? So once the category is there, then all of a sudden there's this like big hoopla and oh my God, you're a pervert and such and such. Which is so strange to me because
I mean, spank that ass one good time. Like,
what's the problem? You know, she really hurts his feelings really, really bad. And it leaves him scarred. It leaves him feeling like if I really take this leap again, I am going to burn and turn into a big lump of coal like Mercury did because it got too close to the sun. You know, that's the analogy he uses in the film. But I appreciated seeing that side of it because really, I guess the biggest hurdle to our satisfaction in life is the judgment of others. We allow the other people's judgments to keep us from the things that we want. And we shouldn't. And I think that that's part of what this movie is talking about. You know, just because you have a desire that's outside of the norm doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means that it's different. So anyway, things fall apart because he doesn't know how to articulate the trigger that he had, because I'm very, very sure that he felt the same way about Jiwoo. Like, their feelings were very mutual. It was not a one-sided thing in the slightest. They have their final scene and the ex comes back and she basically doesn't want him to move on, right? Like, she doesn't want to accept him for who he is, but she also feels bitter about him moving on because for her, I think what they were trying to say is that she felt disillusioned, like she was in love with him, and then here comes this thing that I can't get over, and now you ruined me, like, in her mind, I think. But he also feels like, well, you ruined me too, like, you hurt me and made me feel like there was something wrong with me, and here I am having this exploration and experience that's telling me that I'm not wrong. So he had to have that confrontation with her, but he has it right before their final play, right? And in their final play, like, that's actually probably like the hottest scene. No, it's the most sexual scene. It's hot, don't get me wrong, because they actually finally kiss, which is satisfying. They crossed the line, and they had agreed that they weren't gonna cross the line, but they do. And basically it just forces them to confront the truth. Like, she can't pretend that she doesn't have feelings for him, and she can't wait for him to figure whatever the fuck it is he has going on to figure that out. On the other hand, he's like coming to terms with the fact that he doesn't want to get hurt again, right? So they're in a conflict. I don't think it should have ended up in any kind of breakup in the real world, but you know, this is the film, this is the film, this is the everything crumbles moment. And then they get exposed at work, which was bound to happen because they have this scene at work and it was recorded, and so now it gets spread to everybody in the office. And speaking of, we didn't talk about that scene. In that scene in particular, that was a really great scene, very cathartic scene, but I'm not gonna tell you like everything that happens in it. But one thing that was really interesting for me was how it was the filmmaking of that particular scene, because they were moving so much, but the editing was quite seamless, and I was wondering how they actually blocked that shot. This is just my filmmaker brain, okay? Like, how did they actually like block that shot to keep it cohesive like that? And it was just so busy. So I was like I wonder how long it took to film that scene. Like, I was very, very curious. They get exposed at work, and I enjoyed the function of that scene. What I mean by that is Jiwoo had to finally own his desires, because here they were at work in a place with a lot of pressure, you know, the seniority and the hierarchy and all this pressure to be clean and pure and all these things, right? Never mind the fact that none of the people actually live up to that standard, but whatever. In the face of that, he had to own it. He was like, yeah, okay, I'm a weirdo and I asked her to do it and this is my desire, you know? And that was good for him. I think that that was really necessary for him so that he could grow as a character and get out of the victim mentality that he was stuck in because of his ex-girlfriend. Oh, my voice is going, girl. Been talking too damn much. I'm almost done, girl. So he gets to accept who he is in the face of judgment. And that was a beautiful sort of full circle moment in terms of character growth, right? And then they do have their happy ending in the end. And it's so cute. You know, I loved everything about the film. Like, it was just adorable to watch. For me, it really satisfied all of my expectations that I had before going into the film. However, you know, once I was in the film and they started teasing us with the sensuality, I was hoping for at least like one good love scene, well, just one good, you know.
My second question for you is, as you saw in the film, there were no sex scenes. Did that take away from the erotic pleasure of viewing the film, or did it enhance it, or neither? Was it just neutral? Let me know.
And the answer is no, like absolutely no, girl, okay? Being able to see the more sensual side of BDSM play, or in their case, the DS play, really gave more eroticism than just sex could ever really do. We saw the faces he made, like when she would touch him, or the squinting, and like the like it was just, it really came through. And the act of actual sex is amazing, don't get me wrong, but the before, the play, the dance between each other, it was really brought out in this movie. And I think that it gave more than sex would have given, just seeing them play, hit, whatever, bark, or if you're the dog and like now we're having like this hot, sweaty sex. Sex really takes away from what I think the whole BDSM kind of community, and what people who are trying to portray more of that are actually trying to say, you know, that this play is very sensual, it's very intimate, and most of the time it happens before, or sometimes there isn't even any sex, you know, in the BDSM play. So I really loved how that didn't take away anything from the movie. Like, that was amazing, especially for someone like me. I'm a very sensual woman. Like, sex is like great, like the dick, the vagina is amazing. I have a whole baby. But the touching and the breath and like the different sensations between the feather and leather and fingernails, and just being able to feel and distinguish those different touches is just right up my alley. Like, being able to really sit and think about, like, can I feel it touching me, or am I touching it? Like, that's where I am with the whole sensuality. So I love how they brought that out through their play in the movie.
I was very satisfied only because I took everything into consideration. It is a Korean production. Korean productions tend to lean away from sensuality and sexuality. Not all of them, but most of them do. I can count on one hand how many productions really like cross the line and like just explore that sensuality. On the top of my list is Nevertheless, the drama that came out last year. I remember Love, Marriage and Divorce, and then one film that I watched was A Man and a Woman starring Gong Yoo. Yeah, if you ever get a chance to watch it, thank me later. It was giving soft porn, I don't want to lie.
And thirdly, what was your overall take of the film? Like, do you think it achieved what it set out to achieve? You know, we watched the trailer. We had a conversation about what we thought the movie was going to be. So did it meet your expectations? Did it disappoint you? Were you happy about it? What was your overall feeling when you finished watching the film?
My biggest takeaway from the movie is that there is a big kind of movement, I think, in the way that collectively we're going to have to start to see sensuality and intimacy as something that is not a deviant thing or something that is extracurricular, but something that we need to survive and to thrive within our relationships and one another. Just like Tandy says at the end of, towards the end, he talks about how their time together really makes him feel alive. Like, that's important. Like, there are things like this that make somebody feel alive and like worth living, like being able to feel, even if it's pain, to know that they're alive, and they're here. And I think there is going to be a big revolution in the space of intimacy and how that can look so differently for so many people, and how, in our different cultures, in this case we're talking about Korea, where these things are seen as taboo, and it's not, I don't want to say celebrated, and it should be. Intimacy and sensuality should be celebrated as adult people who are consenting, etc., who want to experience those things. But I just see how it's going to start to be a conversation, people being more honest with themselves, what they love. And so that's my biggest takeaway. And so I'm so glad that, Tandy introduced me to this movie, because it was everything. And I joked with her. I was like, man, she had me asking my man if he wanted to have a little chain. I mean, he told me no, but I'm gonna keep asking.
But overall, I feel like what this really speaks to is the world's need for sensuality. The reason why I got such a crazy response online is because I think as a people we are in need of intimacy. Not necessarily sex, but maybe sex too. But we're in need of gentle, considerate intimacy. Like, I think as a collective we're desiring that. That's why people are enjoying content like this. So for the decision makers up there, please don't be afraid of sensuality. It doesn't have to be overly graphic like Western media can be, but don't shy away from it. That's how we all came to Earth. We came through sex. Well, most of us. Some of us came via science and test tubes, but power to you.
So yes, thank you again for having me in this video and having me on your channel. I love the movie. Everyone, if you have not seen it, please go and watch Love and Leashes on Netflix. It is an amazing movie. No matter who you are, no matter what you like sexually, you will get something out of the movie. You will really get something important, I think, from the movie, in the way that they interact, the way that Ji-woo tends and cares and loves for him, in the way that Ji-hoo allows himself to be loved and be cared for and be tended to. And I think that's very important. So please, guys, watch the movie. Thank you, Tandy. I love you. Mwah.
Thank you so much, Misha, for coming onto my channel and sharing with the people. I know that whatever you said was fucking insightful and something to think about and deep, the way that you always are. And to everybody watching, you have come to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Did you guys enjoy Love and Leashes? If you watched, I surely did. It was the best Valentine's Day gift. That is all I got for y'all. I ain't got no more. 안녕히 계세요. Until next time. Bye.